Hi, everyone. This is Rochelle with Vrai, and I'm here today with Cathy Maday, founder and president of Wingspan Performance. I love Cathy. She's been in my world for almost a decade, and I'm just thrilled to have her here. Hi, Cathy.
Hi, Rochelle. I'm thrilled to be here as well.
I wanted to start the conversation off with talking. I think it's really important to just dive into what you do, because that will lead us into a lot of important conversations for entrepreneurs. We, in prepping for this conversation, talked about a couple of key words that came up for us, like authenticity, accountability, empowerment, and a little bit of a push. And I want to talk about what you've done, because I've personally worked with you and really appreciated our time together, and have told so many people about you and the powerful experience that I've had. And I know that you're touching so many lives. So talk a little bit about you, what you do, and then we'll go from there.
Oh, thank you so much for that. We work with business leaders who are frustrated or disappointed, or like they've got this angst because they know deep down that they have so much more, and they know they're capable of so much more, and they don't know how to get there. And they also know that their team, whatever that team looks like, that their team is really capable of blowing the doors off and accomplishing awesome things. And they're just not sure how to get there. And so when we start working with them, we help them to get really clear on what are these things that they're frustrated or aggravated about. We help them to see that there's a lot of information in that emotion. And we help them identify what habits of behavior or communication are slowing them down and unintentionally creating exactly what they don't want. And then we give them that push you were talking about and very practical tools, so that ultimately they start creating much more of what they want, less of what they don't. And in the process, it's really exciting because they begin to realize just how powerful they are.
Yeah, I can see that. And I think it goes there's so many coaches out there, right? So I just want to set this straight, that I believe you are way more than a coach. You are not on the sidelines. I had you come with my team. We workshopped. I was on regular calls with you. You were my true wingman. That should be your tagline.
Your true wingman. I love that. We've played around with that a little bit too, because it's a much better descriptor. We're that powerful partner. We're your champion and totally alongside you for tackling those challenges you've got in front of you and making progress on your most important things. So
yeah,
we like being the wingman.
Yeah, it's very Top Gun. I think about my relationship with my now fiance, who's a pilot, and he's always like, risky move, Mav. Like, that's what you need in life. You need somebody to say, like, whether it's being sarcastic or not, but just like a nice partnership. And I think that's what you bring to the table, because we've all heard it's lonely at the top. And it truly can be more than that, overwhelming. It can be overwhelming with the burden that we start to take on ourselves versus giving people the latitude and personal responsibility on our team to lead on our behalf and with us and alongside us and for themselves. So by doing that, we're taking a little off our own shoulders because we're empowering other people.
That's exactly it. And that's another reason we work with senior leaders, whether it be the business owner, CEO, or VP, director level. They're not getting the support that they really want. They're not getting challenged by the people around them. They're not getting direct, honest, useful feedback or the accountability that they're really counting on, and the encouragement and acknowledgement. And you hit the nail on the head in terms of one of those primary habits that nearly every single leader that I've worked with, thousands of them over the last 18 plus years, one of the habits that they have that are working against them is the tendency to be a high responsibility person. And we take on so much responsibility, too much responsibility. And so what helped us be high performing perhaps earlier in our career, now it's working against us because we're not handing that over to our leaders, to our direct reports, and to our team members, so that they are taking full ownership. And then we're able to not only operate more strategically to grow the business, we're also freed up for time with family, freed up for time for ourselves. Like, when does that happen?
Mm-hmm.
And so that tendency to take too much responsibility, including responsibility that's not really ours, is one of those big habits or patterns that we help to interrupt and help people get out of autopilot so that they can get stronger, healthier performance from themselves and their team.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That conjured up some thoughts, both from my experience and other conversations that I've had. The notion of fear of, well, if I delegate this, it's not going to get done the right way. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to talk on the elementary level here. Like, I want to talk to these high powered, like high achieving people.
Yeah.
Like myself, where we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. Yeah. Now, I struggled to build a leadership team. And what I was trying to do in my past life was build a team with the people that I already had. And through working with you, I discovered that they weren't the right people for that particular level. And so that's something to be thought about. There's a fear of, how am I going to pass this on? And then there's the fear of, well, what am I worth then? What's my value if I'm passing this on? Well, I've said this a million times, but entrepreneurs, if you're not sharing responsibility, the company has no value if it can't operate without you. So you have to share that tacit knowledge, and you have to hire those A players.
That exactly. And what you're talking about too, in terms of that fear. So again, we have, so many of us high achievers have relied on our strength of doing it all, doing it super well. And sometimes we have some control issues and we really are afraid of handing it over. I'm guilty as well with some responsibilities, and I continue to challenge myself. I have an advisor. I've got a coach to push and challenge me and hold me accountable as well. And that's what's really exciting, is that when we're working with a leader and a business owner, we help them with really practical tools, and then the accountability to pry their fingers off some of these responsibilities, and then distribute work and delegate work, hold their team members accountable in really effective ways to get the business results and to actually strengthen the relationships. Because the other fear that a lot of us have is that, well, even if I do delegate this, what if they're really not following through? What if the quality of the work drops, or what if we lose a customer, something? And how am I going to hold them accountable? I'm afraid to hold them accountable and then lose them as an employee. We also often have friendships in smaller businesses as well, or in teams within big businesses. And so we're afraid of, how do I give them direct feedback or hold them accountable because they're also my friend? Mm-hmm. And that's where the tools within our system really excel, because when you start to practice and exercise them, you strengthen their relationship rather than the opposite.
Yeah. And I guess that brings up another word for me, which is trust. And there's a lot of underlying when you keep asking why do I feel this way? Why do I feel this way? Why am I fearful? Trust seems to come up. And even I think a lot of people talk about trusting others, but do you trust yourself? And if you're really keen on what you're good at and what your strengths are, I feel you'll trust yourself more and the confidence will build because you let go of what you're not great at and you're surrounding yourself with people who are better than you in those areas, and you can still lead and lead better. And then you're empowering other people who then love you back and trust you. So I think it's that 360 thing. And you helped me discover that.
I'm so glad you're bringing this up, Rochelle, because whenever we start talking about trust, whether it be with an individual or within a team, trust, first of all, always starts with trusting ourselves. And the way we help individuals to shift how they look at trust is not if I trust a person or not. It's to what extent do I trust this person on this thing at this time?
Mm.
And looking at it that way gives us so much more clarity for how we hand off or what we hand off or when we hand it off. And then how do we get really targeted on the support? And coming back to the trusting ourselves, when we've got a process and some tools to first look at it that way, help us to really make decisions. And because sometimes it's not trust, it's building our muscles around assessing a person's readiness and their capability, not their potential. Those are two different things.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we look at to what extent do I trust this person around this thing at this time? Because we can have low trust for someone simply because they don't on something, simply because they don't have experience or readiness. Though on these other things, we trust them to a great extent. And differentiating these pieces really helps then for us to trust ourselves in how we're making those decisions and then how we're supporting those team members going forward.
Mm. Yeah, that's really powerful. How have you seen that play into your own life? You know, when you think about your personal journey, because I know you personally and professionally, excuse me, and I want you to talk a little bit about that, about some of the challenges and how you've gone through that, if you don't
Mm-hmm.
mind.
That's a yeah, that's a big one. I would say that so growing up, I'm I've gotten to a point where now I'm really so grateful for the challenges I had growing up. Um, Growing up poor and growing up with some challenges with my mom passing when I was really young, when I was 4. I got responsible really quickly. And also being the only girl, I started taking care of my brothers. Um, Growing up poor also was such a fantastic impetus for when I was 12. I wanted nice notebooks and new pens and like really nice school gear, and I wanted some new clothes. I wasn't going to get that if I didn't figure it out. And so I started working when I was 12. Haven't stopped. One of the coolest things, though, because I really started to trust myself and rely on myself. And through the years, having had some real big challenges, when even recently having so you're aware of just recently, just 6 months ago, went through an experience having brain surgery, which was really scary, and spending 11 days in neuro ICU. It was really scary, and I continue to be thankful for how those difficulties, those scary times, help me to continue to trust myself. And it's really a practice and an exercise of trusting, okay, if I went through that, I can figure this out. And if I went through that, I can, I can continue. I'm okay. I'm fine being poor, or I'm okay being whatever, someone not liking me, or like it's real. It helps in perspective, and it really helps in that trust department of trusting myself to figure it out, trusting that I'm coming from a really good place in relationships. Just like we were talking about, this trusting of others in our business. I've made some poor decisions. I focused so much on someone's potential, and then got burned and didn't do enough to trust myself and look at it this way, in terms of to what extent is this person ready and able. And so it continues to be, trust continues to be something that covers the spectrum of experiences and emotions and fear. And it still comes into play here and there, wanting to make the best decisions for the business and for the people that we work with, in the business and with our clients and leaders.
Thank you for sharing that, because I think that's really important, as people listening to this can hear that you're a real person with a great deal of empathy. And with a lot of coaches, it can get very systematic of, well, this is step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. And you see that with each step, while you have a process, there's this feedback loop, I guess, and you're listening and you're readjusting and you're trying to make sure that it's personalized to them and their situation, while taking into consideration the team, but always servicing the leader that you're working with. And I really appreciate that about you, and love that you shared. I'm truly grateful that you shared what you just went through, because I know that was tough for you. I know that was a really challenging time, and the human side of entrepreneurship doesn't get talked about enough, which is the whole premise of this docuseries, for people to say, wow, I'm not alone. I'm going through a divorce. I did that. I was on an island. I went through bankruptcy on an island. Nobody talks about things because there's so much shame. And for why you don't trust that you're going to get through it? I think so. I think that you get buried in this, as Brene Brown would call it, I think she calls it a shame spiral. And it is. It's just never ending. You can't get out of it, and you start to drill down where you almost feel like smothered.
That absolutely. And in fact, one of the ways that we will get ourselves down in that shame spiral is, you said it earlier, you were asking why. We tell our leaders, stop asking yourself why. Don't even ask that anymore. Ask yourself some better questions, and that are more supportive, because all of us have some, what we call protective, every single one of us as human beings, and definitely as high achieving entrepreneurs, we have protective patterns. And so a lot of things helped us at one point in time, like going through some of the stuff when I was younger. My mom had passed. I also had some not so warm and fuzzy stepmothers that were abusive, and so I learned how to navigate some pretty challenging situations. The problem is, though, I really perfected a lot of those patterns, and so, like, even with my stepmothers, I learned how to, like, be and do and say whatever I thought they wanted me to be and do and say, so that I could like just make it through the day. Like I didn't want to, it wasn't pretty if they were like hot or cold, or, I was never sure. So I developed a lot of martyr protective patterns, taking on responsibility that's not mine, taking care of people, putting everyone else first. And I got to a point in my life, and certainly in my business also, where those things that really helped me now were totally working against me. The cost was outweighing the payoff. And that's what that's what we help so many leaders with, is that no matter what habit or tendency you have, at some point it really helped you. So stop asking yourself why. The answer to that question is always, at some point you had a really, really, really good reason for it. And now you have a better reason to do it differently. That's it. It's so important that we exercise compassion with ourselves, particularly when we're feeling like we're on an island. And so a way to really care for ourselves and work through some of these really difficult life experiences, stop asking ourselves why, and really practice asking ourselves more supportive questions like, okay, what do I know? What have I gone through that was similar? Who's on my team? Who am I going to reach out to today? Asking questions that actually help us to take that action forward rather than that shame spiral you talked about, because that is real.
It is. And those are very constructive questions, and things I had forgotten since we were working together on those things. And that seems like a lifetime ago. And, it reminds me too that I want to remind the entrepreneurs that this is not all of you. This is a part of you, a part of your life's journey, and your work is your work. And I don't want to tell people not to love what they do. I do. I think you should only do what you love to do, like as a profession.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, your business is going to be sold, or you're going to have to let it go, or you're going to be removed from the planet. At some point, there's an end point for all things. So who are you outside of that? How can you be a positive leader and be remembered for that at work? And how does that bleed into your home life?
That is another reason, Rochelle, that we focus on what we call behavioral performance, because it's not what we do. The focus now starts to be on loving how we're doing it. And when we're focusing on how we're doing whatever it is, that goes with us everywhere. And so having that passion and loving how we go about everything and who we're being in the process, that's where the money is. That's where the joy and the excitement and fulfillment is, for sure.
Yeah. And, I was thinking about some leaders that I know who didn't lead well. So they didn't really lead because nobody was following, right? So as the pure definition of leader, but in the leadership position, I know in 2 accounts that those people knew that they were at fault. What if they had stood up in front of everybody or had private conversations with, I just own it, right? Own it. Recognize I'm working on this. Please call me out on this. I've heard what you have to say. I'm listening, but not just say it, like show it. And that's the shame spiral too, because we all make mistakes. But as a leader, you can get very caught up in ego, of how can I tell my team that I'm wrong? Because now everybody's they're going to shame me. It comes back to that, I guess. Have you dealt with things like that where they need to come out of their own shell?
Yeah. So there's a couple things in that. The leaders that you talked about that weren't ready or fit for those responsibilities, if they're not coming from this centered place of love and growth, what we call your personal leadership, your powerful self. If they're not coming from that, then they're coming from fear and protection. This is another reason we help leaders to focus on behavioral performance, because you're going to be able to better assess someone's capabilities or their readiness or willingness for certain sets of responsibilities. And so taking a far more objective approach to, without judgment, also where this individual is ready, where they're not. So that's the first thing. And then the other thing that you brought up is that owning it. And it's not so much ego. It goes back to protective patterns again. Some of us have learned to overmanage ourselves and to only show certain things. That in and of itself is a protective pattern. We only want to show different things. And that individual, any individual who's doing that, again, at some point they learn to do it and it helped them. And now it's working against them. And now it's costing them opportunity or perhaps costing them a leadership role. And that third thing that you talked about in terms of owning it, when a leader gets into this place of practicing owning it, it's not about being wrong. We tell people eliminate the word wrong from your vocabulary. It's also not about fault. Eliminate that as well. So when we eliminate that and we have a better way of exercising compassion for ourselves and learning how to communicate and express owning it to others. So for example, and this is a key part when we're working with teams and collectively they want to raise their performance, it's critical that they practice saying out loud, oh, wow, I realized I had a tendency to fill in the blank. I realized I had a tendency to act like I knew I had all the answers. And now what I'm doing is I'm counting on my team for those answers, or now I'm practicing saying, I don't know. When we own up like that, it is amazing what we create in our relationship with ourselves. And then of course, what we create in the relationships with the people around us. It's the owning with compassion for ourselves, and eliminate those words, the words wrong and the words fault. Those bring in a whole lot of judgment. That's just simply not productive. Like, it's not helpful. So we're taking them out.
Well, that's really powerful. Yeah. It really makes me think differently, even in the examples I was thinking about before, because I do tend to, as the subordinate in that situation, like there's a blame game, of I don't feel heard, you're not listening, you're never going to change, and I'm a pretty optimistic, can get along with anybody kind of person. But what it ended up doing was putting up this wall built up. And behind closed doors in my leadership position, there were a lot of tears, and then going home empty. So from the other side of that, with team members, and I know we're going over time, but I just think this is really important. Yeah. So that leaders can hear more about what's happening on the other side with their team. What kind of feedback do you get from them when there's conflict like that?
Yeah, so the really cool thing is that, first of all, if someone, no matter if it's the leader or the direct report, if they're coming to me and they're expressing, I don't feel heard, he's not listening, I'll say, okay, come back. I'm going to give you different language so you come out of your protective patterns and come back into your powerful self. I'm not getting heard. I'm not getting him to listen. And so we help the individual to focus on, all right, let's come back to what you've been doing, and let's figure out what's contributing to your not getting heard. When we help an individual really focus on what they can control, which is their part of the equation, and then they start exercising more of that healthy control, and they own, this is another example of owning, when they own, I'm not getting heard with this person, not he's not listening, it's I'm not getting heard. We automatically start to access these other internal resources that each of us have, and or some practical tools to do it differently, so that we are far more effective and we don't continue to build that wall. Now, the fact that someone's doing that, starting to build that wall, is totally understandable. It just doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
And so there's a core component in our system called 100% responsibility, and that's owning 100% responsibility for my part of the equation and what I'm creating, including what I'm creating with other people.
So what I've heard you say is, first we recognize, then we communicate more effectively, which makes us think better, think in a different way, more positive way, more effective way, which makes us perform higher. Yes,
that's exactly it. Because sometimes when we're ineffective, what we help leaders to recognize is, here are some tendencies you have, and that's how you're ineffective currently. So here are some things to practice differently: language, questions, other tools when we are communicating. And in that practice of different language or more productive communication, it absolutely we change our own thinking and we change our perspective. And then we start seeing, oh, I really can influence this person. I really can get heard, no matter how difficult the personality. Then we're off to the races. Mm-hmm. And we're in what we call your personal performance zone.
I love that. We're going to have to do a part 2 of this for sure, because I want to know more about that personal performance zone. I feel like I need like a visual, like something on my wall, like to show me where I am in that.
I'll send you one.
Oh, good. Is it something I can share as a resource for everybody?
Absolutely.
Oh, that would be awesome. I love visuals. That. I just finished my vision board and I need like something else up here on my wall to target. I need a target. I'm a just goal-oriented person. So
yeah, that's perfect. I'll send you one.
Thank you. I know you have so much to share with us, and I'm just grateful for the time today. I hope that we've been able to have a little nugget for some leaders to catch on to, and while the world's opening back up and everybody's trying to figure out their new normal again, but isn't that life? Like every day is change. So the one constant is us, and I really appreciate your expertise and professionalism and giving us some things to hang on to today.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Rochelle. I love being in the community with my fellow entrepreneurs.
Well, thank you. And like-minded, leading with heart. And that's what I love about you, Cathy.
Oh, thank you so much, Rochelle.
Thanks. Have a great day, everyone.